Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Real People Real Estate, where we sit down with real people right here in Western Massachusetts doing awesome things in real estate. I am with my good friend and coworker, Jeff LaPointe today. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing well.
Good. Well, thank you for joining. We were just kind of laughing about how little I actually felt like I knew about some of your background and bio and everything. But what I do know is when you came to us originally for your mortgage, and how long ago, when was that?
That was probably at least like 15 years ago.
It was 15 years ago?
Which shows how good you
Wait
are
a minute.
staying in touch.
It shows also the gray hairs that are going to be coming through too. So was that your first?
That was my second property.
Second property,
Yeah.
Okay. And so you've got now quite a few properties into property management, rentals, just kind of well-rounded there. How many units now?
So I've got 6 rental units, 3 2-families in Greenfield.
Wow.
Plus my house.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping today that you can shed some insight on, a lot of people who are wondering, like, where do I start? What's a good place to start? We often get questions as originators about house hacking, right? Like all the trendy stuff that everybody wants to do. So I guess right off the bat, like if you think back to young Jeff 15, 20 years ago, that very first property, how did you decide it was going to be a multifamily?
So I got into it because that's what my dad did. He's a landlord in Greenfield, and growing up I was always, working for him during the summers and winters, things like that. So kind of grew up being around, the rental business.
Yeah.
The first property I bought, I actually did buy off him.
Okay.
And then, that kind of allowed me to dip my toes into it and
see what was possible.
Yeah, and then from there, I acquired the other 2 properties as owner occupied. I would move into them, kind of take on the unit that needed more work, kind of work on that as I lived in, and it rent out the other, and then kind of rinse and repeat.
Okay, so that was actually going to be one of my questions as far as the work on these properties, if they needed work right when you moved in. Yeah. Sounds like you were able to do some of that on your own.
Yeah, I try to do as much as I can, and at the time I was, single, didn't have kids yet, wasn't married, so I didn't mind living in kind of a construction site, so to speak. So
makes it a little easier without those kids sticking around.
Yeah. Now the house is a mess just for a different reason.
Right.
But so I usually would just kind of work in the one that I'm in, and then if the other tenant moved out, I would maybe switch units, do the same thing there, and then rent out the one that I just fixed up. Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of just sweat equity, hard work in that case, and kind of moving through the different units to spruce them up a little bit. That's awesome. Was there ever a repair that you encountered that you needed to bring in other experts to help you with? Yeah,
there's a lot of areas that I don't I don't trust my skill set to get into. A lot of electrical or plumbing. I'll do very basic stuff, but
anything that needs a permit, obviously, you have to get an
and
expert,
I don't want to mess it up and then call the plumber in and have to explain what I did to them. So.
Didn't look as bad before. Now it looks really bad.
Yeah. So that and that kind of you try to find those good people in the trades that you can call for those things, and that was a huge part of getting used to the business is who do I call for these things? Who's gonna be fair and
building
quick and all that. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Was there ever a time in any of those early days of ownership where you were like, what the heck did I just get into? Or was everything kind of smooth sailing?
Not in the early stage. I actually had a pretty...
Actually, it was yesterday. I was like, what am I doing?
Well, it is a little bit more difficult now because I don't live in the same town that I have the rentals in. So I'm not in front of them as often. Yeah. So I think sometimes, the deferred maintenance, stuff like that, having to put in reminders, just like I'm putting in reminders for, my work as a loan officer. Yeah. I need to kind of put that stuff in, as a landlord too. So that was an adjustment of...
To kind of check on the property.
Yeah, it's easier to maintain them when they're right in front of you, but having to make sure that you're scheduling time to just do a walkthrough of the apartments and things like that.
What kind of things do you keep an eye on in that case?
Well, just, if there's any signs of leaks, it might be a small leak, but if you're not there seeing it and someone doesn't mention it, or
you might not get the call until the ceilings fall
right
in.
or railings getting loose, or stuff like that. Just staying on top of it before they become bigger things.
Right, before they become bigger problems. That makes sense. Yeah. So when you're analyzing, let's say when you went from your first to your second, or second to third, right? Or even is there going to be another one in the future, maybe?
I think we're good for now.
Too many kids,
the kids keep me busy enough. I can't do it anymore.
What kind of assessment do you do as far as the financial side, like to figure out if it's going to be a good return on investment? What are you looking for there?
For myself, I was just kind of looking that they would at least be cash flowing at a neutral, meaning that the rents would cover the expenses of the property.
Yep.
I got to the point where the rental units would cover the rental units, plus a good amount of my personal bills, which came in handy when I was switching over to being a loan officer and having to build up that business. It kind of took some of the pressure off of earning. So that was the perspective I went into it with. As long as it covers itself, it's fine. But if you're looking, to really have that as your income, you want to make sure that that the upkeep of it, is taken into account, like a 2-family, versus a 3. You're going to have the extra rental income, and a lot of the big repairs aren't growing with that. You still only have one roof, you have one driveway, you have one, basement. It's you want to kind of maximize the income versus those type of maintenance.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting because, I guess, with more units, maybe you have more systems, but you also have less exterior potentially maintenance.
Yeah, one house to paint, one lawn to mow. Those things. So.
Right. I'm just laughing to myself at the lawn mowing because I was just talking to Sam about getting lawns done, and he always makes fun of me because I'm like, oh, we have a lawn? I didn't even know that. So I wouldn't have thought of the multiple lawns to mow in that case. Now, when you're factoring in those expenses and carrying costs, and you mentioned, wanting the rent to kind of cover those costs, are you also factoring in, of course, taxes, insurance, mortgage, but how do you kind of figure out maintenance? Is it just from your own?
At first I didn't really have a set, it was kind of figuring it out.
Trial and error.
But kind of depending on the unit and what upgrades have been done recently, you can kind of go through, if you're purchasing it, going through the inspection report and seeing, how many years are probably left on the heating system and those things. And then it'll kind of be, turnover too. Are there tenants in there when you're buying it?
Right.
Have they been there for 10 years and are probably going to be there, for life? Versus if you're getting it fully vacant, you can kind of go through and try to do stuff ahead of time.
Yeah, right. That's probably a different assessment too. And then what's the market rent? Can you make, can or would you make any changes? Because I would imagine that's really hard. Speaking to other landlords, oftentimes the balance between, of course, wanting to be able to get good fair market rent, but also at the same time, when you have really good tenants, you don't want to drive anyone out of the property either.
Right. I would say that a good tenant is worth the cut on rent. If you've got someone that's under market, but they're a good tenant, they keep the apartment up, they're paying on time, like that.
Yeah.
The little headaches of just having to, whether it's, tracking down people for rent, or, sometimes they think they're doing you a favor by not telling you about an issue in the apartment. Yeah. And then it becomes a bigger thing where all of a sudden now they're telling you about it, but it's a much bigger issue.
Like, we didn't want to call you 3 months ago when the sink started leaking.
Right. It's like, please bug me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you said your first property was through family. It was kind of the original connection. For the next ones, did you go out and look for those, in the market, or was it other for sale by owners?
So I went out and got them on the market. Second one just happened to be like a street over from the first house that I had. I wasn't like actively looking, but saw it, knew the neighborhood, and the numbers kind of matched up. So did that and moved over to that as a primary residence. Was a little bit more in like a residential neighborhood versus the first one was a little bit more commercial surroundings. So that was kind of a nicer place for me personally, but then also was able to kind of expand that.
Yeah,
that
and then
rental.
the third one you also moved in.
Yeah, the third one, I had temporarily moved down to New Orleans for a couple of years to be near some family down there, and then when we were moving back up, bought that. When we were relocating.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. So you truly did the house hacking that everybody's talking about.
I did. I lived it.
We're here, hearing it here now. Yeah, that's awesome, and that's really the way to do it. And you did it through true hard work and sweat equity, and working your way up along the way. So that's amazing. So then you ended up actually also having a career in banking and now mortgage. So how did that happen? Like, what came first? Was it banking, or was it the rental property, or was it kind of hand in hand?
So the rental properties were first,
okay.
And then I got into banking kind of by accident.
Okay.
I had moved out to I was moving out to Phoenix with a friend of mine who was out there for a motorcycle mechanic school, and he was looking for a roommate. And at that point, I was just doing some construction work kind of under the table, and was like, all right, I'll go do that.
Yeah.
I went out there with some ideas of working for some insurance companies, and that was right in 2008 when the economy tanked.
Not an ideal time.
Yeah. So a couple of my job prospects dried up when I went out there, and I ended up just getting a job as a teller at a credit union out there, and kind of like that. Got to dip my toes into lending, with like auto loans and personal loans, and kind of like that side of it, kind of the puzzle of solving people's needs with that, financial tools with that. Right. So when I moved back east, I worked at TD Bank up in Brattleboro as the assistant manager up there. Yeah. And that was where I got the first chance to work in mortgages. Okay. The assistant manager role at that time with TD, you were kind of the go-to point person for mortgages, home equities. They didn't have a sitting mortgage lender.
Sure. Was that residential side mostly?
Yeah, residential. Then the branch manager kind of handled all the commercial stuff.
Okay.
So
you had that split.
I was taking mortgage applications before I knew what a mortgage really was.
Yeah. Well, real life experience, and plus you had all the financial side of managing the properties somewhat, to be able to, I would think, work that into your just auto loans and the other pieces of the puzzle that you were learning along the way too. So lived experience and, real career experience. And then you also were in the secondary side, right? Like the capital markets side of mortgage at one point.
So after TD Bank, I bounced around a couple different banks doing more, back office lending, in commercial and consumer. And then I was working for a lock desk for Northeast Home Loan out of Southern New Hampshire. Yeah.
So you had to kind of track the markets a little bit and understand how pricing and how rates move and everything.
Yeah, it gave me a great insight on how the loan pricing works, how to kind of structure a loan to best benefit the client, how to make things work.
Yep. So you're telling me you have a crystal ball and you can tell us where rates are going to go now, right?
I would love to have that.
Up or down, we're not sure.
Yeah, it'll go one of the two ways.
Exactly. Right.
Or stay the same.
Good answer. Perfect. Well, I noticed working together, your demeanor with clients, people everywhere is always just like we're chatting today, like very calm and cool and collected and all that kind of stuff. Is there any experience you've had in your rental side where something has just like totally thrown you off, or are you able to just like keep this calm? Should I ask Tessa? I should have had Tessa on the show.
Yeah, Tessa could tell you the truth of
Any
what goes on
behind
the scenes. I did have a rental property burned down.
Oh, wow.
When I was relocating down to New Orleans.
Oh, that's horrible. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So luckily no one was hurt. No pets, no people.
Yeah.
So that was, the good side of it.
Yeah.
But that was actually the first property I bought was the one that burned down, which I've since rebuilt, which gave me experience of going through construction.
Yeah. And insurance claims process too, I would imagine.
And, handling the loss of rent and all of that.
Yeah.
So,
wow. So you can speak then to the good and the bad or the hard side of property management.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been a lot. When you were rebuilding, was the fire, was it the whole building, or
It was completely from scratch. So
wow.
It actually happened as I was driving down to New Orleans to move down there.
Wow.
Got the call. I was in North Carolina and had a bunch of missed calls. First one I called back was the fire department in Greenfield.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, through that you're dealing with insurance, which,
Yeah.
My insurance company was great.
Yeah.
And then dealing with kind of what the options were of, do I rebuild right then, or do I wait? So I ended up, just got it demoed. It was a vacant lot for a few years. And then once I moved back into the area, I had kind of a window with some of the insurance funds of like what I needed to do with it, of either to rebuild or use it to buy something else.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't find any income generating ideas with the lot.
Sure.
I tried to get a few people to use it for parking or things like that. So decided to
Made
use
sense
that
to
and rebuild. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you rebuild similar to the setup of the original
Yeah,
house?
because that was one of the challenges we had, is that the lot was a little bit smaller than current codes would allow. So I had to get a few variances and things like that.
Kind of reconfigure a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that must have been a huge learning experience to have
It
to
was.
go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, the codes and the regulations and all that.
It was a lot. And then, that was during COVID too. The tail end of the construction was COVID. So then the contractor I was working with, he was running into a lot of challenges with, you couldn't have multiple contractors on site at the same time.
Yeah.
That was, when they were still trying to figure out as far as like who, who
What
could
were
be in what
essential
proximity
workers
and things like that. So, that was a big learning curve.
Yeah. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
And now it's back and occupied and knock on wood, doing well. Well, that definitely would be a really shocking experience. And now you were also handling all of that from afar, right? Because you were in the middle of moving, or had you come back?
I had come back up when the construction
By the
was
time
going.
the construction was actually going on.
Yeah.
That might have made it really extra difficult if it was.
Which that weighed into my decision to not build right away.
Yeah.
Same thing of trying to do that and not be able to be on site.
That makes sense.
Not that I was on site.
Yeah, well, just at least able to check in, and that makes sense. So you're a loan originator, and obviously I'm biased because you're on my team, but you're excellent at what you do. I don't even have to say it. The 5-star reviews speak for you, which is fabulous. When people approach you and they're thinking maybe they want to buy their first 2-unit, or they're in a house and they want another one, right? Like this house hacking craze that's going on, which, by the way, I'm kind of making fun of the house hacking, viral thing to do, but really it is. I had a 2-unit for my first house, and I think if you can have enough wherewithal, or maybe enough little extra savings to be able to cover these unexpected repairs you're talking about, it can make sense because you've got an extra amount of income coming in too. But when people approach you about that, I mean, any tips, tricks, advice that you feel like you're just really set up as the expert because you've got all this experience?
What I usually tell people is just trust your comfort. If people are nervous about renting and dealing with I don't want to be hounding people for rent. I'm nervous about keeping up with the maintenance and things like that. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
I think that starting off with a 2-family is a pretty easy learning curve because you can be pickier about who you're renting. You're not trying to fill 20 units. You're trying to fill 1.
Yeah.
You're present, so you're going to be on top of things. Like if you get a vibe that this tenant is not for me, you're there. You're able to see it and kind of see that early. So it gives a little bit of a softer landing spot.
Sure.
Just because you're there and it's 1 unit. Also, it doesn't have to be your forever path, because even if you get a 2-family, you decide like this is not for me. In the meantime, you've had a tenant who hopefully has been at least paying. At least it hasn't been that struggle. But as long as they're paying, it's like, well, they're building you equity that you can then turn to buy your single family down the road. Or ideally, you do it and you're like, I could do this. And then you have that, leverage to buy the next house if you're going to have that income plus what you move out of.
Right.
And, I would say jumping into like a 4-family or something if you're unsure about it is much trickier.
You have 3 other people you're coordinating in that
right,
case.
and there's just that much more maintenance. But a 2-family, it's much more in line with the type of maintenance you'd have when you're a 1-family.
Yeah, I love what you said about it doesn't have to be forever. I think that oftentimes home buyers approach a home because certainly it is a big decision, right? It's people's most of the time biggest asset and also biggest debt, and you're writing a large check for that property, but it doesn't always have to be the forever home right off the bat. And I think that's what you did so well, is like you took these opportunities and just literally worked through them one by one to build up your portfolio. That's really admirable. So we have some just little rapid fire questions that I do at the end, if you're ready for those,
Sure.
Whatever comes off the top of your head. So what's your favorite room in a house?
My favorite room in the house, we have a 3-season room that I love spending. It was part of the reason we bought it. I think it was like the selling point
cool.
of our house.
Yeah.
It's a nice view out to our yard.
Awesome.
Get a good breeze in there.
Is it overrun with the kids' stuff?
Of course. Every room is. Every room is.
Yeah. I don't think that ever stops,
yeah.
probably, until they have different things, right? Yeah. That's awesome. What about your favorite local business right now?
Let's see.
I know, it's hard to pick.
That is a tough one. Probably, like for places to go out, to eat,
Sure.
like the Farm Table in Burnston's
Awesome.
a great spot that me and my wife like to get to when we can.
That's great when you can get a sitter.
Yeah.
And then any like parting advice for anyone that is looking to buy a home in this market right now?
I think just getting educated early is the biggest piece of advice. I get a lot of people who sometimes they'll wait until they see a specific house that I'm trying to act on this now, and they're applying on a Friday. There's an open house on Saturday, and they have to decide if they want to put in an offer on Sunday.
Sure.
And even if everything goes through where they get pre-approved, they don't have time to really like let those numbers sink in. Mm-hmm. And I get nervous that it's like, well, have you had a chance to really look at that in your budget? So I mean, that's a best case scenario where they are able to get pre-approved for it.
Sure.
But then you also run into people where all of a sudden there's like a couple little things that they can get pre-approved, but we have to do A, B, and C first.
Right.
And just not having that time to do it, or doing that under duress, then it just becomes a more stressful thing. So I would just say, like, I think you've always given like the 6 to 12 month window of if you think you might buy in that time, get pre-approved now. We can always refresh it as it goes. But trying to rush it when it is, like, as you said, such a, probably the biggest purchase that most people are going to make, unless they're buying a crazy yacht or something later on. But
that's a whole other lifestyle. So if we ever get there, we'll change this to a show about yachts instead. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jeff, for hopping on. Really appreciated chatting. And thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning in today to Real People Real Estate. We hope that you were inspired by this conversation to plant your roots right here in Western Massachusetts. And if you want to join on this show, send me a message. I'd love to have you, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.